set, Welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast, where we discuss dynasty strategy, rankings, and all things NFL. So get ready to geek out on fantasy football with your host, Rich Dotson.
And welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm Rich Dotson. He's Matt O'Hara.
Hey.
And he's Garret Price.
How's it going?
It's going good. We're going to wrap up over the next 2 days our top 12 position predictions here. At each position, we're going to give you our top 12 players in order that we think they're going to finish in total points scored on the 2024 NFL season, which is right around the corner because next week is our bold prediction shows. And then right after those come out, literally, I think the day the second show comes out, there's Thursday Night Football. So the points are going to count for real.
Yeah. That's going to be sweet, man. I can't wait.
Yeah, me neither. I mean, it's that time of year. It's exciting. You know, the rookie previews, the draft process, the Dynasty Hot Boy Summer.
Winding down.
Right here to the bold predictions. Like, it all comes down to this, like all the work you come in and, you know, and then it's more work then, because then once the season starts, that's where you're really kind of starting to like put the final touches on your team, where you're going to have to make the trades, whether because of lack of production, whether because of injuries. Like it is with Dynasty a nonstop, you know, process where like in redraft, like you might have some injuries, like trades are way less likely in redraft to go down than they are in Dynasty. The free agency waiver wire is just so much more fluid than it is in Dynasty. But in Dynasty, you know, like you're constantly going left when you're going right, where you thought you were a contender and all of a sudden you end up where you're not a contender, whether because of injuries or the couple players that you thought were going to pan out and help you take that edge or turn, didn't go that way. And then all of a sudden you find yourself in a couple players like a Puka Nacua. You had no idea was really going to help contribute to your team, kind of take a big step forward. And you're like, wow, if I make a move here or a move there, like I could really compete. And, you know, that's something you always have to be mindful of and always seize the opportunity, you know, like, never find yourself in a position to be like, oh wow, like out of nowhere, like I could compete, and it might even be because your team's doing exceptionally well. Like maybe the two powerhouses ahead of you, like man, I can't beat Garrett's team, right? Like his team is loaded, and then all of a sudden, Tyreek Hill goes down and Christian McCaffrey goes down, and you're like, oh dang, man. Like this is obtainable now. Like I could actually go. Like if I just go ahead and get this running back, like I think I could win a ship. Like, and that's what we're all chasing here. So we'll see. We're going to talk about some players that we think, you know, finish as wide receiver ones, tight end ones, like the cusp, the pinnacle of your championship caliber team, right? These top 30 players, these guys are going to be top 12 at their position. And, you know, we're going to start off here with wide receiver. And I think out of all the ones we did, and again, I have no idea who your guys' top 12 is. I think the receiver position will be the most chalk.
At least I know that my top like 8 or 9 like felt very chalky. It was those last 3 spots that like I wanted to try to cram 15 guys in the last 3 spots.
Yeah.
And I couldn't. But I feel like our top 9 will be very, maybe next year we got to do 24 because that's where it'll get spicier. But yeah, the top like 8 or 9 or so of mine do feel pretty chalky.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, totally agree. I feel like there's going to be maybe a couple surprises and a couple guys that we're off on here and there, but they're all going to be within reason. It's the wide receiver position. This is the one that is pretty much the most stable year after year, depending on injuries and stuff like that. But for the most part, those guys that are top 10, top 12, they're going to be top 10, top 12 for a pretty good amount of time.
Yeah, my number 12 spot was my toughest spot because, like Garrett said, there's literally 12 guys, you know, arguably 12 guys I could have made the argument for here. And I went back and forth and, you know, just, you know, I'll go first here in my top 12. Let me go through my top 12 and I'll tell you the guy that like I really want to put in my top 12. I didn't, and who I ended up with, and we'll talk about it why. But let me give you my guys' top 12 in order. When you guys ready?
Yep, do it.
So in order, I have it going CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamar Chase, Marvin Harrison Jr., the rookie here, next. Then I had Garrett Wilson, A.J. Brown, Devontae Adams, Drake London, and then as my 12th guy, out of all these 12 I had to shuffle, I ended up settling on Mike Evans.
Okay.
If that Brandon Ayuk trade would have went through, I think I would have 100% put Deebo Samuel into the slot. But without like knowing where Ayuk's going to end, like somehow maybe end up on the San Francisco, that's what kind of like kept me out there. But I think it would have made my 12 real easy for me if he would have.
Did you skip a guy? Because for some reason I was like going through my list and it seemed like you only had 11. Did you get 12?
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Oh my God. Do I only have 11? Did I delete somebody?
I was wondering because I was like, yes. Wait.
I felt like something was off, but I wasn't going down my list with him because my list is different. So I was kind of bing-banging around.
Sure.
Yeah, I somehow deleted somebody here. Getting ready. Today's my anniversary, my 14-year anniversary. And I forgot that I deleted. Cooper Kupp.
I was gonna say it's Kupp, isn't it? It's got to be Kupp.
Okay. Yeah, it's Cooper Kupp. Sorry. Yeah, I had him. I had him, and I had Cooper Kupp. I highlighted or bold-faced all the players' names, and then there's all the notes, and I didn't bold-face his name. So,
where do you have him? What number?
I have Cooper Kupp at 11.
Okay.
And then I have Mike Evans. I apologize.
All good. Yeah, I was going through and I was like, I'm seeing like a lot of similar names, obviously, and I was like, I feel like I have a couple guys left that you didn't name. So it worked out. All good.
All right, so let me go
Matt,
next
go
here. I'm gonna number 1. I had CeeDee Lamb as well, and number 2 I had Tyreek Hill also. Number 3 I had Amon-Ra St. Brown. Number 4 Justin Jefferson. Number 5 I had AJ Brown. Number 6 Garrett Wilson. 7 Jamar Chase. 8 Cooper Kupp. 9 Devontae Adams. 10 Marvin Harrison Jr. 11 Mike Evans, and 12 Jayden Reed.
Oh, Jayden Reed. Yeah, now we're getting saucy.
Boy.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow. I can't wait to talk about that because I have my rankings here, and for this season, I have him at 34.
Whoa, way too low.
I guess one of us is going to be right, and the other one's going to be really, really wrong.
Or you can just meet in the middle for how far apart those ones are. Jesus.
Well, I mean, we'll get to it, but there's so many receivers. There's so many receivers. Okay. All right. Here's my top 12. A little bit different than you guys, but towards the top, it's not too drastically different. I have Tyreek and CeeDee switched. So I have Tyreek first, then CeeDee Lamb, but splitting hairs there. I still believe in Jamar Chase. I know the holdout and stuff, but I have him at 3. Amon-Ra St. Brown I have at 4. Justin Jefferson at 5. I have Garrett Wilson at 6. AJ Brown at 7. Marvin Harrison Jr. at 8. I have Devontae Adams at 9. I have Cooper Kupp at 10. At 11, I have Drake London. And then my spicy one was I put Malik Nabers in at 12. That was the spicy one.
No way.
I'm telling you, man, like he was like, so, and I mentioned the Deebo Samuel trade, like he would have been for sure in there over Mike Evans. And the same thing, like the 2 other guys I had that were spicy. Cause I kind of want to get like same thing. I want to have a spicy guy at 12, just to talk about it. But like, I couldn't get out from Mike Evans.
That's fair.
I kept going back to it. I really had the other 2 guys I was down. So I said like 12 guys. The guys I was really down to was Deebo Samuel, Malik Nabers, like you had, because I mean, let's just face it, he's going to see all the targets, like
all the targets.
So like, there's a very good chance that if he stays healthy, like he could finish as a top 12 wide receiver on targets alone. Like he's going to see 160 targets. Like it's going to be that amount.
Sure
of targets,
feels like that,
which equates to fantasy gold. Like me, I went to the Indians game at Rich Rebar the other day, and we were talking like his name come up, Malik Nabers. We're like, dude, it's so funny. Like we were talking kind of like DFS and redraft. And we were talking about Malik Nabers, and we're like, dude, why is like he's going like you can get him in like the 5th round, where like, and people are somewhat sleeping on him and having him outside their top 15 when he's literally going to see every single target. And then the other guy that I want to get in that I didn't think about getting in, and who I originally thought I was going to put in at 12, but kind of going like flip flopping as well with the Ayuk trade was George Pickens. George Pickens was another guy that I thought it with no Ayuk trade that gets definitely slide in there as a wide receiver 1. And I think he kind of falls in that Malik Nabers category as well. Like just going to see a ton of targets and eat. And, we could kind of argue about like tight end 7 and tight end 14 compared to like wide receiver 12 and wide receiver 14. So like, I don't want to see any tweets coming at me like, oh, how do you have George Pickens or Malik Nabers in your top 12? I'm like, okay, I have them at 13 and 14, bro. Like, we're not far off here.
I'm also surprised that none of us had Puka inside the top 12 because he is pretty commonly in the top 12 for most people. But I know we're not as high on him overall as a unit. But I am surprised no one snuck him in there at like 12 or something.
It's a healthy Cooper Kupp, man.
Right, that's what it is for me. And the fact that he's coming into the season, I know he's off whatever list he was on as far as the injury stuff. But I think it's a bad omen coming into the season where you're missing preseason snaps and all that kind of stuff. I think he's going to have a little bit of a slow start, which is just going to afford Cooper Kupp, I think, a little bit more time to reestablish himself in the regular season with Matthew Stafford. And once that connection is rolling again, I just think it's going to be Cooper Kupp unless he gets injured again. That kind of is the 1A.
I did something yesterday where I did a stat for every team, and my Rams stat was on Puka Nacua. In games where Cooper Kupp was not there, Puka Nacua had 13 targets per game, and ones where Cooper Kupp was there, it was 8.3. So drastic drop in targets when Cooper Kupp was there.
Yeah, and all that stuff makes a difference.
Yeah, it makes sense too. I mean, that passes the smell test as far as how I see those players as well. Like, I just think Cooper Kupp right now is a better wide receiver than Puka Nacua. I know Puka Nacua came in and was very efficient in that offense, but I just think Cooper Kupp is better. If both those guys are healthy, he's going to be the one that's getting more targets out of the two of those guys.
Hey, Nerd Herd, this is Rich Dotson. I've got some exciting news for you. Underdog Fantasy is back with their annual Best Ball Mania tournament, and this year it's bigger than ever with a whopping $15 million prize pool. Best Ball Mania 5 is the ultimate fantasy football competition where you draft your team and then sit back and relax. No trades, no waivers, just your best lineup every week automatically set by Underdog. For just $25, you can enter for a shot at the grand prize of $1.5 million. Plus, there are tons of other prizes throughout the season, including $500,000 for the top regular season performer. And guess what? We've got a special offer just for our listeners. Use the promo code NERDS when you sign up, and Underdog will give you up to $250 in bonus cash with your first deposit. Don't miss out. Drafts are happening now. The entries close before the first game of the season. Head over to UnderdogFantasy.com or download the Underdog app. Sign up with promo code NERDS and start your journey to fantasy football glory today. Must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama, Nebraska, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in the state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. In New York, call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY. In Tennessee, call 1-800-889-9789. And there's tons of guys that could sneak in here. Like a Puka Nacua could sneak in here. Jalen Waddle could sneak in here.
Yep.
DK
Michael
Metcalf
Pittman
could sneak in here. Michael Pittman Jr. could sneak in here.
Chris Olave.
Chris Olave is an easy one to put in. Most everybody has in here.
Right.
I could see Terry McLaurin slipping in. You could see, Devonta Smith has done it. Like, there's so many players that could do it. Real quick on Michael Pittman Jr., I have him at 17, but I was trying to find a path because last year, and this was also from those stats, Michael Pittman Jr. is only the 9th. It was either 7th or 9th. I think he was the 9th player in NFL history to have over 100 receptions, but 4 or less touchdowns. So he just got really unlucky in the touchdown department. And even with his red zone statistics, I was looking at red zone stuff preparing for this show and whatnot, and his red zone statistics, even he was one of the top targeted players in the red zone too. So it wasn't like he wasn't targeted there. He was 8th in red zone targets with 20, but only walked away with 2 red zone touchdowns. So he's a guy where just gets a little bit more lucky. All of a sudden, he's inside the top 12.
Yeah, and it's you said Matt split those statistics on George Pickens, and if you just increase them slightly, he was a wide receiver 1. I love how you mentioned a name like Terry McLaurin, who's kind of getting slept on, another mid-range target at Malik Nabers range, and redraft that I absolutely love because with the trade of Jahan Dotson, he's the lone soldier there to really see and soak up all those targets. And bringing in the rookie quarterback and Jayden Daniels probably has something to do with it. But Jayden Daniels, remember, I mean, this guy's he had a long college career. He's going to come in and feel pretty comfortable in that position. He's and think about it, where like everybody's all in on Anthony Richardson, right? Like all in on Anthony Richardson.
Yeah,
Jayden Daniels probably has 50 more career starts than Anthony Richardson.
Like. Could be true,
honestly. Like 50. No, yeah. Like, and I'm just throwing a number out there. There's no research, but I would guess 50 more starts than Anthony Richardson going back. And then if you go back to high school, maybe even more. So like, it's funny how everybody's all in on Anthony Richardson really high because he came in those couple games and played really well. But Jayden Daniels just as mobile as Anthony Richardson and far more accurate than Anthony Richardson. So, for me, I think Terry McLaurin's, like you said, you can make the case for Michael Pittman Jr. The same case you can make for Michael Pittman Jr., who again, he has Adonai Mitchell opposite of him and Josh Downs opposite of him. Terry McLaurin's got Zach Ertz out there.
He's got nothing.
De'Ami Brown is on that team, man. Come on.
De'Ami Brown, Luke McCaffrey. So going back up at the top, again, we all have CeeDee Lamb as the number one receiver.
I had Tyreek and then CeeDee, so I have them flipped from you two guys. Not like if you have CeeDee 1 versus Tyreek 1, like I'm not going to argue it. It's splitting hairs. Like both dudes are going to get a billion targets. Both dudes are going to make tons of big plays, and both dudes are going to be like, if you had to bet the over under on like both of them being inside the top 5, like I would easily take like for sure, yes, over. They're going to both be in the top 5.
Yeah, CeeDee Lamb finished as a wide receiver 1 overall, but on points per game basis, Tyreek Hill was the number 1 receiver overall because CeeDee Lamb played that more extra game than him.
Yeah. Right, and it was both I'm looking at it right now. It's 23.7 to 23.5. Those guys they're basically the same for fantasy purposes. And obviously, with CeeDee Lamb signing that deal the other day, there won't be any threat of a holdout or anything like that. That was kind of the last piece of the puzzle. I was waiting to see kind of exactly where I was going to rank him. And he finally did sign. This came out, whatever it was, over the weekend, and I feel pretty good about putting him there again. Who knows if he's actually going to be number 1, but he's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. He's going to be somewhere right in there, and he's going to have a gross fantasy points per game right around the 20 plus fantasy points per game, which everyone's looking for.
Yeah, that signed that huge, massive contract to the second highest paid receiver right behind Justin Jefferson. Jamar Chase returned back to practice finally on Sunday, which got him in my top 12. I told myself if he did not return to practice by the time we did this podcast, that he would not be in my top 12 for fantasy. And I ended up putting him here at number 5. I have Jamar Chase. And that's where, like, I talk about Jamar Chase all the time. Like, until he really comes out and does it, like, I feel people that take him number 1, number 2, number 3 overall, like, I feel like I don't feel like Jamar Chase deserves that yet, right? Like, he hasn't accomplished what Amon-Ra St. Brown has accomplished. He hasn't accomplished what Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, or CeeDee Lamb does. Is he an extremely good talent? Yeah, but, like, is he more talented than Marvin Harrison Jr.? And, like, at the same point, like, I have Marvin Harrison Jr. right behind him. And honestly, like, I wanted to put Marvin Harrison Jr. ahead of Jamar Chase. I really did. Having T. Higgins there, and Jermaine Burton, the addition of Mike Gesicki, like, again, Marvin Harrison's that target monster there in Arizona. So, like, that's the one guy, like, I had some, slight hesitation about Jamar Chase, like, the extreme talent, but, like, I could put him a little bit lower in my rank.
And to put the numbers on it, I mean, in a points per, in a PPR league, his high water mark is wide receiver 5. It was his rookie season. And then these past 2 seasons, he's been wide receiver 11. So just to put that in perspective, you got him at 5. That's his high water mark so far in his career.
Yeah.
I put him down at 7, and I felt like that's kind of a comfy zone for me. Like, I feel like if he does better than he did last season, that's where he could end up in my book. He would have to really go way above, and T. Higgins might have to completely disappear for him to get up into that stratosphere of above 4 or 5 like that. It's to get into that range. I feel like T. Higgins is really going to have to take a big step back or just be flat out injured this year, which I don't see happening, especially since he's playing for a contract next season.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously Jamar Chase is significantly better with a Joe Burrow, right? Like he's averaging about 15 points per game with Joe Burrow. He's averaging about 10 points per game without Joe Burrow. And the big deciding factor,
his numbers are better than that. His numbers are better than that.
I'm talking about last year.
Yeah, he averaged 16.4 points per game overall.
Yeah, maybe you're looking at the standards again.
Yeah, I do that all the time on fantasy. I do that stuff all the time on fantasy. Like when I switch back from quarterback to wide receiver there.
Yeah,
a little bit more. It is a little bit higher. Because I probably should just start going. I always just use Fantasy Pros for my my rankings, and anytime I switch, I hate that they do that. I switch back to standard. But my big deciding factor for Jamar Chase was like, you know what? Like he's really motivated. He's seeing all these guys get paid. Like he's really motivated to get paid, and that really does play a factor sometimes in NFL seasons when people want to get paid. And him and Burrow are boys, you know what I mean? So like we should see a Jamar Chase. But the same argument can be made for T. Higgins. Like he's about to be a free agent. He wants to get paid as well.
Sure. I think this whole offense is motivated.
I think you're right. But any thought of him actually getting paid? Do you think that could be linked to him coming into camp? Like, hey, maybe they're getting close to an actual contract there, or no shot. Mike Brown doesn't have the cash. It's just not within the cards here this year.
I think they told him, like, listen, dude, you could sit out if you want. That's fine. We're going to fine you. And if you sit out, your season's going to toll. And you got 2 years left on your deal. Like, sit out. What are you going to do here? You're going to lose money? And like, we will pay you, but we're not going to pay you until next year. Like, that's how we're going to do business. Like, you don't dictate the business that we do. Like, this is what we're doing. And other receivers got signed, and they're like, maybe they explained to him, like, we just can't afford to do this right now. Like, we literally can't afford it. Maybe that's part of it too. I don't know, but he really didn't have a lot of, leg to stand on there in the negotiation tax for having so much time left on his contract.
Refresh my memory, because I don't remember how the timing was of him coming into camp. Was it directly after CeeDee Lamb's contract got done, or was it right before?
It was before CeeDee. CeeDee's got done yesterday. He came into camp on Sunday and started practicing.
Okay. I just couldn't remember exactly how that went down.
I have Jamar Chase the highest of you guys. I have him at 3. And look, I get the skepticism, but on a just a raw talent perspective, like, he's one of the most talented wide receivers that we have in the NFL. You see it every year. He puts up some monster games, but I think those small games that we've seen out of the past couple of years normalize a little bit. Every receiver is going to have a dud game here and there, but they've talked about running him out of the slot more, like they did his rookie season when he had his best year. So I think that's going to be a big boost. I do think the contract situation's motivated, but honestly, I think this whole team's motivated. This was a team that was in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. With injuries and different things, like, and the division just getting better, it's been tough for them the past couple seasons. I think with a fully healthy Joe Burrow, I think we're going to see some monster numbers from Jamar Chase. And even if those games where he had like a few 8, 9, 5, 8, 5, 7, like he had a couple. He had like 6 or 7 games where you're just
he had quite a few last year where he was putting up less than double digits. There's 1, 2.
Yeah. And so,
3,
and 4, if you're able to do that, if you're able to have
7.
1, 2, 7, you have 7 games where you put up less than 10 points and you can still be wide receiver 11. Like, that just shows how freaking good you are. So if those games
right there, 52-point game in week 5,
52-point game, 25, 26, 31, like, he had some monster games. But if you can do that, like, if those games that are 5 and 8 and 7 now become 11 and 12 and 13, now all of a sudden, like, you're right up there at the top. And I think he's going to get the target share. I think he's motivated. I think Burrow's motivated, because even remember those first few games with Burrow, he was coming off an injury into the season, and everybody was wondering, saying, what's wrong? Like, how are things going? Burrow was coming off an injury into the season. things started slow, then it normalized, and then Burrow got hurt again. A normal Burrow, Ja'Marr Chase is going to absolutely be a top 5 guy this year.
Yeah, I mean, of course, there's an argument for any of these guys to be top 5. If I have them at 6, you know what I mean, or 5 or 4, you put them at 3. Like, I mean, I couldn't get any of them ahead of Justin Jefferson. I don't care that Kirk Cousins not there. Look what Justin Jefferson did.
Where did you have
Nick
Jefferson?
Number 3.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, he had like 2 games with Nick Mullins, though. It's such a small sample size.
Yeah, I mean, he still played well regardless. I mean, you bring in Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold's been the guy in camp the whole time, so they have a good rapport going together. He's a team leader. On a points per game basis last year, when you look at Justin Jefferson, at the end of the year, week 17, week 18, he had 2.5 and 7.8 points on the year. Even with those points added into his score, he averaged 21.7 points on the year, which is second overall for wide receivers in PPR leagues. So I'm sorry. Hold on. I'm sorry. You're right. I'm on the wrong. Jefferson, I know he got hurt right that first game he got back. He was spitting up blood and got hit really well, but then he still played pretty well. And then obviously that last game of the year went off. We had 190 yards and a touchdown, 39 points. So for me, I still will take the talent. Him being with Sam Darnold throughout this entire camp as the number 1 receiver out there for the Minnesota Vikings. With Jordan Addison, no TJ Hawkinson, so it's just him and Jordan Addison essentially, and Aaron Jones on offense. Justin Jefferson's still gonna get fed the ball a ton here, and when looking at these guys, that's what I'm kind of looking for, and that's why I'm glad you have Malik Nabers in there, and wish I had more courage to put Malik Nabers in there. It's because I'm looking for guys like that, right? We say it all the time. What for quarterbacks? What are you looking for? You're looking for rushing quarterbacks. For running backs, you're looking for pass catching running backs. For tight ends, that you want them to be either the first or second option in the passing game. That's what you want at tight end. And then for receivers, you want the guys to see all the targets, or just be an absolute standout guy. But most of these guys are seeing all the targets and are standout guys, right? Right. So all these guys we have at the top here, CeeDee Lamb, he's competing with Brandon Cooks, and Brandon Cooks is fine because we know the wide receiver 2 could live in today's NFL. And some of these guys, counterparts like the Devontae Smith, the Jalen Waddles, they could still be wide receiver 1s as well. We've seen that multiple years in a row. So the fact that Jefferson's still probably gonna be a target hog in this offense and with his skill set, I couldn't get him ahead. I couldn't get him behind Ja'Marr Chase, no matter who's throwing him the football. Hey, Dynasty Nerds, want to revolutionize your fantasy experience? Look no further than Sleeper, the cutting-edge platform now featuring our Dynasty GM tool. Get unparalleled Dynasty insights right where you play. But that's not all. Sleeper's new picks product is a game changer. It's incredibly simple. Choose 2 to 8 players and predict if they'll perform above or below their projected stats. No complex lineups, no salary caps. Make picks before or during live games for NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, and more. Here's the kicker. You win up to 100 times your cash with just a few correct picks. And it gets better. Use our promo code NERDS and Sleeper will match your first deposit 100% up to $100. That's free cash to play with, folks. Ready to dominate? Use the link on our podcast description or enter the promo code NERDS when you sign up. Double your deposit, access to Dynasty GM, and start winning big with Sleeper picks.
Where did you have Jefferson, Matt?
I had him at 4. So I think Rich had him at 3. I had him at 4. Didn't you have him at 5 or 6 or something?
I had him at 5. Yep. So I had Ja'Marr Chase at 3, Amon-Ra at 4, and then I had Justin Jefferson at 5. And the reason I have him here at 5 is because of what we've seen with Garrett Wilson the past couple seasons. For a guy that's crazy talented, sometimes if the quarterback play is just so bad, it doesn't matter. And so I was tempted to move Jefferson even lower. He's just such a freak that I couldn't bring myself to do it. But I would be lying if I didn't say there was more worry and risk with him than I feel like there are with a lot of the other guys inside the top 8 or 9 players.
I mean, color me a little bit worried here with Sam Darnold, just because we've never seen him do it for an extended period of time. We've seen short stretches of Sam Darnold looking good and being able to operate offenses, but he always seems to eventually implode. And that's what I'm worried about is somewhere along the line, Sam Darnold kind of not being the answer for them and them having to turn the page to somebody else mid-season, which, yeah. I mean, Justin Jefferson, we've seen him look good with bad quarterbacks, all of kind of the end of last season. So we know he can do it, but will the consistency be there week in and week out, out of Justin Jefferson if there is a quarterback change somewhere down, somewhere throughout the season? And that's just kind of the thing that I have in the back of my mind. That's why I have him at 4 and not maybe 2 or 3, because obviously if he's got a stable situation there, he's in the running to be the top guy. I just don't think he's got that in him. I think 4 is kind of the highest I would see him. And just because I have such deep love for him, I go right to the top of my ranking for him instead of like where I worry, which is he could end up at 7 or 8 pretty easily, I think, if he's got some inconsistent weeks. So that's kind of the range of outcomes for Justin Jefferson for me.
I mean, it doesn't take much, what we're talking about here too. I mean, when you look at wide receiver, like I said, so we go down, like last year finished as wide receiver 12 was Nico Collins, right? He was wide receiver 12 with 260 points. Wide receiver 11 had 262. Wide receiver 12 had 265. Wide receiver, then you go 273, 278, 282, 286, 289. So the difference between wide receiver 5 and wide receiver 12, we're going in like 3 points overall increments. So we're talking about like 0.2 points per game, right? Like, so this is the epitome of splitting hairs here. Like it really is. Like it's that small of a gap between saying, like, to the point of us going, there's no argument to be had here. There's no need to make your stance on like where we have Jamar Chase, where we have Justin Jefferson, because in the end, most likely we're going to be talking about probably maybe like I'm talking about worst case that they play all year, a 15-point differential in their overall points, 20 points per differential. We're talking about 1 point per game here. So they're all top. So like, let's talk about some of the guys that we differentiate. Who else did somebody not have Marvin Harrison Jr. in their top 12?
I had him at,
I think I had him at 10.
Okay. So I definitely had him the highest here. And again, I talked about how I wanted to have him a little bit higher. I thought about putting him ahead of Jamar Chase. And for me, Marvin Harrison Jr., didn't come out. Nobody's out here talking about him in camp, but he's quietly been working these defensive backs in camp. I know in their joint practice, I can't remember who it was. He thrived there as well. And he's coming in, and we talked about like, who's the wide receiver seeing all the targets? And right now it's Marvin Harrison Jr. Zay Jones is suspended the first couple of games. We know Michael Wilson is most likely to be the number 2 slot there, but Trey McBride's probably got the number 2 option in this offense as well. But you bring Marvin Harrison Jr. with a fully healthy Kyler Murray, and I think he's going to hit the ground running to the point of I can see people next year taking Marvin Harrison Jr. in a dynasty startup as their first, second, or third wide receiver off the board, ahead of Jamar Chase, ahead of Justin Jefferson, because we all know dynasty players want that youth and they want to chase that youth. And we saw what Kyler Murray can do all year long with a healthy wide receiver 1 who's uber talented. When DeAndre Hopkins first went to the Arizona Cardinals, that was his first and only full year with the Arizona Cardinals, fully healthy. What did he do? He had 115 catches, 1,407 yards, and 6 touchdowns, was good for wide receiver 4 overall. So with what we've seen lately too, out of these rookie wide receivers coming into the league, I mean, they have hit the ground running. We see guys like Puka Nacua come out here and break the all-time record in rookie yards just last year. Not too long before that, Jamar Chase came in. Like you mentioned, his best finish overall was as a rookie, as wide receiver 5 with 1,455 yards and 13 touchdowns his rookie season. We've seen a ton of these rookies over these last couple of years really come in. Garrett Wilson's, Chris Olave, all kind of come back out here. They're all scoring over 1,000 yards. Some are getting even higher than that, the 1,400 yards. Justin Jefferson came out as a rookie, 1,400 receiving yards, 7 touchdowns. So we saw, Jamar Chase was considered one of the best prospects coming around in a long time. over 1,400 yards. Justin Jefferson as a rookie, 1,400 yards. Puka Nacua, over 1,400 yards. There is not a doubt in my mind that Marvin Harrison cannot come in and be the best prospect amongst all those groups and surpass all of those guys and come out and score 1,500 yards his rookie year and flirt with getting those double-digit touchdowns, which could put him up even, again, why I kind of want to put him up slightly high above Jamar Chase, because he's almost a lone wolf in this offense with a quality quarterback. I could not get Marvin Harrison Jr. any lower than behind Jamar Chase as my wide receiver 6. And arguably, I want to put him higher in this offense. We've seen this way too much over the last couple of years. I think the trend continues this year. It could easily, and honestly, like I will probably regret not having Malik Nabers in this as well. We're going to see two guys come in right away and really plant themselves as high-end wide receiver ones to go with the ones that we already have in a dynasty landscape. So I'm very excited to see this. I think Marvin Harrison Jr., of course, has the talent, and I think it will translate to wide receivers. I'm saying wide receiver 6 or better for Marvin Harrison Jr. That's how confident I feel. I feel like I almost have him too low here. I'm saying he's at least a wide receiver 6, and I think he hits the 1,400 yard mark in 2024.
Hey, Rich, I think I love the one part where you said he's going to be a target hog and he's got a good quarterback. I think that's a great point as far as these rookie wide receivers and kind of what differentiates Marvin Harrison from Malik Nabers for me. I'm not loving the vibe around the Giants right now. I don't love the feeling I'm getting from Danny Dimes this year. For Malik? For Malik, as far as getting to be a top 12 guy. And with that in mind, because I was dabbling with him being inside my top 12 as well, Malik Nabers, I went back the last 5 seasons just to see how many rookie wide receivers actually cracked the top 12 each season. And then I kind of expounded on that and went top 24, top 36. So last year, only one guy made the top 12. The year before that, none. In 2021, there was only one. In 2020, there was only one. In 2019, there was 0. So really, there hasn't been in the past 5 seasons any two. There hasn't been more than one wide receiver 1 out of the rookie class. When you go to the top 24, 2023 there was 1, 2022 there was 1, 2021 there was 2, 2020 there was 1, and 2019 there was 1. So you're much more likely to get that top 24 wide receiver than you are just the top 12. And when you get to the top 36, that's when the numbers get really good, and that's what you can really rely on. In 2023, there were 3 guys that were in that top 36 range. In 2022, there was 2. 21, there was 1. 2020, there was 2, and then in 2019 there were 3. So you're much more likely to get a wide receiver 3 than anything else. A lot more likely to get a wide receiver 2 than actually get a wide receiver 1. So that's why I only put one guy in. And if I had to choose, I went Marvin Harrison Jr. because he's the guy that I see that has all the targets, but he also has a good quarterback that I feel good about, or at least better about than I do with Daniel Jones. So that's why I picked him over Malik Nabers, even though I like both of those guys. Obviously, long-term, I love both of those guys. But for me, I thought it was just clear, just put one of those guys in if you're going to put any, and that's why I chose Marvin Harrison Jr.
And reluctantly, Danny Dimes was the reason why I left Malik Nabers outside my top 12, even though I have him flirting. I don't think he finishes as a wide receiver 3. I do have him in contention to be flirting with that top 12 finish. But again, I got to make the same argument about Deebo Samuel, Jalen Waddle, Chris Olave. Sure. It's a heavy bunch there when you get around that 13 to 16 range.
So the reason I ended up putting him in, because I went back and forth. I had, for a minute, I had Deebo there. For a minute, I had Evans there. For a minute, I had Puka there. For a minute, I had Pittman there. Like, I had a bunch of different guys that I kept putting in, putting out, putting in, putting out. But finally, I settled on Malik Nabers. What did it for me was, as bad as Danny Dimes has been, and he has not had an incredible career, there are a couple things that I know to be true. And the biggest one of all of these is, I think Malik Nabers is one of the best wide receiver prospects that we've had in the past 5 to 10 years. I have him in our Nerd Score ranking. He's the 7th ranked wide receiver of all of the guys that I've done scores for. The only ones that are ahead: Marvin Harrison Jr., CeeDee Lamb, Devonta Smith, Jamar Chase, and who's the other one? There was one more. And then Romo Dunze was right there with them as well. So, I mean, it's like top tier names of guys that we've had come out each year. So, one, I believe he's uber talented. But two, I don't think Daniel Jones has had a playmaker even in the same stratosphere in the receiving game that we have out of Malik Nabers. And so if he had a legitimate round one receiver that we're like, yeah, this guy's going to be good before, and we saw him kind of flounder with him, then maybe I'd be more hesitant. But I mean, the best prospect he's had so far is Jalen Hyatt, Wan'Dale Robinson. Yeah. Like, I mean, it's been putrid. So I think he's just going to be so much different that we're going to see a reminiscent season of what we saw out of a rookie that went bonkers there about a decade ago now in Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because when we were talking about, when Rebar and I were talking about Malik Nabers, you know, I told him, I was like, hey, man, like, I'm still not, I know I'm one of the few out there, but like, I'm not reluctant just to give up on Daniel Jones completely because, you know, he's been dealt a very bad deck of cards, right? His offensive line's been atrocious. And then Rebar immediately chimed in and he's like, dude, he's had no, like you just said, Gary, he's had no receivers to throw to over his entire career. None. You know, Darius Slayton,
it's been his best.
He thought he was going to weapon, and Darren Waller was never even really able to get on the field there. So where I am reluctant because of like, he didn't look that great in the preseason on Danny Dimes. You're right. Like, he's had nobody to throw the football to whatsoever. And his offensive line has been arguably the worst in the NFL over some of the times he's been there as well. And they have taken a lot of time to try and upgrade that position to help him out. And now he's left with the one guy, and it's literally Malik Nabers.
And the thing that helps too,
let me ask you this.
If you have a bad offensive line, the thing that helps is a guy that gets open quickly, like short area quickness and that's what Malik Nabers has. Go ahead, Matt.
Let me ask you this. Have you guys ever, or do you remember ever having a quarterback kind of have this start to his career where they recovered with the team that they were drafted by? This just, he feels like the guy
he's probably gone. Yeah.
That's playing the string out here and is going to be on another team next year. And it's not that I don't like Daniel Jones. I've just been through this enough times to see the signs and kind of feel like this is it for Daniel Jones here in New York. And Malik Nabers is just going to be dealing with a new quarterback next season. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. That's just the feeling I'm getting. And I hate to say it because I do like Daniel Jones and I have liked him in the past and I have him on some teams. I want him to do well. He feels like the guy that's just, he's going to be replaced next season. And even maybe the coaching staff.
We've seen this story before. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. And I mean, he really has to come out and look really good. Because at the same time, if they're paying him $40 million a year, that going into 2025, that price range is not like exorbitant. So like, he really has to come out and I think really what Daniel Jones has to do is come out and win enough games to take the Giants out of contention of getting a quarterback. Right now, we don't know how strong the quarterback class is next year. Like, he has to come out, play good enough to get the Giants to win.
He's got to be in the playoffs, dude, or they're not going to care. They're going to move on. And that's
probably,
it.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Again, most likely you're right. I mean, I'm agreeing with you. Like, most likely he's gone. So he has to really he has to go out and just be better than just okay and average. Like, he really has to come out there and excel. I'm like, wow, Dan, like everybody's the talk in the media has to be, wow, Daniel Jones has really bounced back with the help of Malik Nabers in his new offensive line, and he looks really good out there. Because again, they add Malik Nabers, but then you take away Saquon Barkley, so they don't have a strong, respected run game at the same time. So he's still stuck with that one weapon on the offense, and and that's fine. Like, listen, that's the way the NFL is. Some people end up in a really good situation, like Jalen Hurts, and they excel. And some people might have the talent, but they're put in a really bad situation. And we've seen it time and time again, whether it be like a guy like David Carr, a guy like Tim Couch, these rookie quarterbacks or young guys come in and they're just in bad situations. And the personnel at the top, the GMs and general managers and scouts, they don't help you along the road. I mean, recently we saw more cuts at the Raiders. I mean, look at the Raiders over the last 5 years, their draft picks and personnel picks they have put around this team. It's absolutely atrocious. Like, you can't win in this NFL if you don't have a a GM that can go out there and get the job done and build an NFL team and put talent around where it needs to be put. Definitely the most important position in sports is the NFL quarterback. So, yeah, and even if it's not Daniel Jones' fault, he is most likely going to be gone this year unless he come out here and excel in this offense and be in that narrative in the NFL media of, yeah, he looks good, he's getting it done. And this is clearly not Daniel Jones' fault.
Hey, Dynasty Nerds, it's time to take your Dynasty game to the next level with FFPC's Dynasty Startup Leagues. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just getting started, FFPC has a league for you, with entry fees ranging from $100 up to $5,000. Choose from a variety of formats, including Superflex, Best Ball Superflex, Triflex, 1QB, and Standard. With weekly lineups, waivers, trades, head-to-head matchups, and playoffs, FFPC's fully managed leagues provide the ultimate dynasty experience. Most importantly, the leagues are here to stay. FFPC has never had a dynasty league fold. They manage the entire commissioner experience from buy-in management to fulfilling your orphans. FFPC is perfect place to expand your dynasty league portfolio. And here's the best part. As a Dynasty Nerds listener, you can get $25 off any entry fee as a new member when you use the promo code NERDS. Head over to myffpc.com now to draft your team, manage your roster, and dominate your league with FFPC. That's myffpc.com. Promo code NERDS for $25 off any entry fee for new members. FFPC, where dynasty dreams become a reality.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, he's still playing, so he's the guy that tripped on a breakaway run. I mean, so it's got something to do with him.
You'll never let that go. So let's get the Matt's bold take here with Jayden Reed coming at number 12. And listen, I love Jayden Reed, I do, but 12 was a little high for me.
I mean, I figured it was going to be high for both of you guys, and it boils down to, for me, like a couple of very simple things. I mean, if Jordan Love is who we think he is and is going to excel like I think he's going to, he is going to be able to kind of keep afloat more than one guy here in this offense. And to me, Jayden Reed is by far the better of the options there, out of all those guys that we've mentioned them several times. The Christian Watsons, the Romeo Dobbs, who the heck's the other guy? Dontavian Wicks.
Dontavian Wicks.
Yeah, right. So, and then if you extrapolate last year, if you look at last season's numbers when he was a rookie, after the bye week, so week 7 on, it's not like it wasn't a late bye; it was a very early bye, kind of week 6 bye. From week 7 on, Jayden Reed was wide receiver 7 on the season last year with 15.4 points per game. Now, listen, is 15.4 points per game fantastic? Is that going to get it done on over a full season to keep you afloat as a wide receiver 1? Not likely. You look at a lot of guys there in the 16 and a half ish range, that kind of stuff to get you kind of into that top 12. But you have to think that there's going to be some sort of evolution to his game, some sort of jump between year 1 and year 2. They always say that is the biggest jump for anybody, is between the first season and the second season, because you're no longer concentrating all the dumb combine stuff or anything like that. You're now taking a full off season to just focus on football. There's no more school. There's no more any of that other stuff you're worried about. You got a whole off season just to do football stuff and soak up as much of your offense as possible and get on the same page as your quarterback. And to me, it doesn't take a big jump, a big leap to get one more point per game. I mean, that's just another catch. That's just what I mean. It's not that much to get from that 15.4 points, which he had from week 7 on last season, just to get that 16 and a half, maybe even 16.7, something like that. And I feel pretty good about that number getting you into the top 12. So while Jayden Reed might be a surprise to some, and other people on this podcast might have him in the 30s somewhere, I'm going to sneak him up in the wide receiver 12, just on the fact that Christian Watson hasn't been able to stay healthy. Romeo Doubs is not as good of a playmaker and as much of an impact player, I think, as a Jayden Reed. And I think there is going to be some chemistry between Love and him that kind of just grows and extrapolates all throughout this season. It's going to be a beautiful thing to watch. We're all going to feel great at the end of the season when he's sitting there at maybe even 10. I might even shot low. with wide receivers.
I hope so, because I went out and made a lot of trades for Jayden Reed. I remember I gave up a first-round pick this offseason for Jayden Reed. Like, I went out and, I don't just come out here and talk on a podcast. I really go out and practice what I preach. And I gave up a first-round pick for Jayden Reed. I got a lot of shares. The only thing I would somewhat worry about that is not just all the other passing options in a passing game there for Green Bay, the names you mentioned. It is a healthy Christian Watson. With a fully healthy, they say they fixed his hamstring, right? They went out above and beyond, tried new techniques, and the doctors say that his hamstring is 100% now. So I also think he's another player to take a step forward in this offense, because I really do believe in Jordan Love a ton, and I think he'll elevate 2 wide receivers, and I think that would be enough. Like, all those other guys right around him would be just enough for me to hinder as Jayden Reed. Because if we did a top 24, Jayden Reed would 100% slide into my top 24. But yeah, man, you make a very strong case of why he could be a wide receiver 1.
I think the tricky part for me, and like, sure, maybe I should bump him up a spot or 2 for this coming season. This isn't dynasty rankings. This is just for this season. But there's just so many names when you add in the rookies this year, then you have guys back to full strength and healthy. And obviously there's going to be injuries and guys are going to get hurt, but for him to get ahead of Malik Nabers, Mike Evans, Deebo, Puka, Chris Olave, Pittman, Waddle, Collins, Metcalf, DJ Moore, Devonta Smith, Terry McLaurin, Brandon Ayuk. That's just the top 24 that I have. Like, I don't know how he gets ahead of any of those guys. Then you add in guys, T. Higgins, Stephon Diggs, Chris Godwin, Tank Dell, like just picking random names in there. Like, it just seems like a tall task for him to get ahead of all of those players for me. Like, that would be really tough.
It is. It's a tough game. It's navigating that circle, though, is why we put the time in and put the research in and find those guys to target that you think are going to put you in position to win a championship, because you can't win a championship without these guys finishing at this level, right? Like, you need those wide receiver 1s. You need those wide receiver 2s. Wide receiver 3s. Yeah. Okay, great. There's still top 36 finishes, but like, I need guys in the top 24. We circle around this fact of, like, when you're a contender, trying to acquire as many top 30 overall players possible. When you get those guys, there's only so many to go around. And you're right. Then it could be a 5-point difference per game or a 1-point difference per game, but every point counts. If it's 1 point different per game and you're starting 10 people, that's 10 points per game that you're missing out on. And that's the difference between winning and losing, right? Definitely when so many of these games come down, definitely in a dynasty league where parity comes into effect, if at the top level, not just the bottom level there, where like some of these games are won and lost by a point, 2 points. Like, how many times do we see these posts, or how many games have you guys lost out there and you lost? Like, you're at the end of the game, like, I just need one more catch out of Jayden Reed. Just one more catch. Please give me that catch. And then
he's getting it this season. He's getting that one more point.
Can you imagine, like, all right, I need one more catch from Malik Nabers, or one more catch from Michael Pittman Jr.
He's not getting it.
Neither one of those example. Guys. And then Anthony Richardson throws an inaccurate pass, and you're like, oh no, it has nothing to do with them. You know what I mean?
Matt, out of curiosity, like, targets wise, what do you expect him to get? Because obviously, I think that for me is one of the biggest like hurdles for him to be able to get in there. He had 94 last season, only had 1 game with double-digit targets. So, like, what do you expect him to get targets wise?
Let me pull up there. So last season he had, how many? You said he had 94 targets.
94 targets last year.
I'm trying. I pull up of course I pulled up the wrong page on what I'm looking at.
No, you're good.
Just for all the team stats.
For the most part, like, you would have to get in like the 130 range probably to have a realistic shot, unless he's just crazy effective.
Yeah, no, I mean, I in my brain I was thinking around the 120, 125, but I don't know what the rest of his stat, like the rest of the team's stats look like.
Because basically your top 24 targeted players have above 130.
Okay. I'm still trying to pull it up. I know I'm real slow.
No, you're good. I was just curious if you had like a rough number in your head of like, I think you can get to this many targets. Because, I mean, granted, guys can be crazy efficient, but you almost never see a guy as a top 12 receiver without being a top 24 targeted player.
No, I get it, and that's what I was looking. I found it. Dobbs and him were basically right on, but he was way more efficient with his targets. So I think that will lead to more targets. He had almost 800 yards compared to 675, and Dobbs actually out targeted him. So I would expect that to start kind of skewing more towards Jayden Reed. And I could see him getting to the 120, 100, 130 range, which would get you there. And it's only, I mean, it sounds like a lot, but it's only a couple more targets per game. You know what I mean? It's not a ton to get him there. I do think
could definitely see him get 7 targets per game. Like for me turn into be their true number 1 receiver. I don't think that's too hard or too far-fetched, like that Matt said, to give him that 120 target range out there.
It's literally only 2 more targets a game. So it's even less than that to get him, to 120. To get 130, then you're looking at 2 plus. But not 3 more.
He would probably have to get he'd probably have to get to the 130 mark to have a real shot at it.
Says you. Says your number.
Right, I'm going to mark down the day he gets to his 120th target. I'm going to mark it down.
All right, perfect.
Yeah, I mean, it's really going to come down to LaFleur's offense, right? Like who's going to be his number 1? Like, does he want to run his system where, like, hey, there's no, like, we have all these talented receivers. Like, we like Wicks, we like Dubs, we like Watson, we like Tucker Kraft, who's been in the news lately. We like Musgrave and Jayden Reed. And that's how he's going to run his offense. Then, yeah, it's going to be hard for any of those guys to really, like, take a big step and be, like, a consistent fantasy value. But, if he runs his offense and he's like, listen, Jayden Reed and Christian Watson, those are, when we're running two wide receivers out there, 2 wide receiver sets, those are the guys that are going to be on the field every single time. Then I think Jayden Reed could be that guy. And listen, draft capital wise, those are the guys they have the most invested in, Christian Watson and Jayden Reed. And,
absolutely.
And I think the big thing is the rapport with Jordan Love. And I think the greatest thing also with Jordan Love and the Jayden Reed combination we saw last year is, when it came down to the red zone in that area of the field, the guy he trusted the most was Jayden Reed. And that's where LaFleur kind of looked to as well.
Absolutely, dude. And he scored 8 touchdowns as a rookie. So I think, we always talk about that being a fluky stat, and we'll see if that one's a little bit stickier or not going kind of year over year. And that'll be the difference. If he doesn't score
receiving, he also had 2 rushing as well, which definitely helped boost him.
Right. So we know that's not the stickiest stat. So listen, there's a lot that could happen as far as him. And he could very well just end up being, one of those wide receiver 2s. And he likely will. I just wanted to bump him up and put him here in my top 12 so we could talk about it.
I love it. I'm surprised you didn't save it for the hot take episode.
Well, and when you finish
that probably would have been a good one. Whatever.
Too late now. When you mentioned the rushing yards they had and 2 rushing touchdowns, like LaFleur, like coming from that, they had a Shanahan, right? Like in a way they used those systems. Like it's not surprising. Like if he feels like he has somebody he can use, like Deebo Samuel, and how much success they have there in San Francisco, and he feels like he has a guy they could use in that role. Again, that just makes touches, right? Like we want the receivers to get all the touches, and that would make him even more, that would increase his odds greatly to be a wide receiver 1, right? Like we just don't count for Deebo Samuel for being a very talented receiver. He gets it in that equation of being a wide receiver 1 because we know he's going to get some end arounds. He's going to be times where he will just be lined up in the backfield and get those touches as well. They're going to find ways to get him into this offense. And I said, we're going to do tight ends next. If Brandon Ayuk leaves, like that's easily puts Deebo Samuel into my wide receiver. Let me ask you that. Say Ayuk gets traded tomorrow. To Washington or Pittsburgh, would you guys would that immediately propel Deebo Samuel into your wide receiver 1s?
Yeah, he was one of the guys that I was looking at anyway. As far as
I have him at 14.
Yeah, I had him pretty close as well. So I didn't rank guys past 12, but he was one of the guys that I had in mind trying to get up in my top 12. I think he on a points per game basis he was already there, right? Last season. He had a really
good year last year.
He just missed.
Overall,
he just missed.
Best. I think all those totals were the second best of his career, like career wise, like on a
per catch, per receiving like basis. I think those were all the second best of his career last year. He had a very good year last year. Just again, some injuries with that shoulder last year.
And maybe it was when I was looking at Jayden Reed's week 7 on type of stats is where I saw him pop. Maybe it was that is when he was. Yeah, he was wide receiver 6 in that same range when Jayden Reed was wide receiver 7. So week 7 on last season. So he had a very strong season last year.
Yeah, he's still there. 37 rushes, 225 yards, and 5 rushing touchdowns for Deebo Samuel. Like that is what a nice little add on there for some juice.
Absolutely. All right.
Well, that's fun. Yeah, I mean, we can sit here and talk wide receivers all day. I mean, you're right, Garrett. Maybe like next year, like the top 12 is so chalky. Like we go, okay, here's our top 12. Who's 13 to 24? Like that,
I feel like we said that last year. I'm pretty sure. Like I remember that. It might have been after the show. It might have been on the show. I don't know, but I do feel like this is kind of a yearly thing.
Take a note. I think right because I think like we could all go through our top 12, but like it might be more interesting if we did go 13 to 24 and why finish there because like that's where the juice is, right? Like that's where you win a championship. Like finding those guys because sometimes those are the guys that could get bought. You know, like you can go out and get Terry McLaurin, right? Like he's available in leagues. And if you like, wow, Rich, Garrett, and Matt all had Terry McLaurin at like 14, for example. Like, oh, I need to go get him, right? Oh, Brandon Cooks at wide receiver 19 for some reason. You know, something on those lines. Like, I can go get him and make a difference.
All right, we're doing 24s. We're doing 24s next year, except for tight end. We're doing 24s.
All right. So, well, not quarterbacks.
Oh, we're doing 24s.
And talk about the odds are. So, all right, we'll be back tomorrow talking tight ends. Who do we think is going to be top 12? I'm sure we're going to have a lot of differential once we get past like 7 here for us, but we'll see. It's going to be interesting.
It's going to be weird. Adios.